All right, let's go ahead and call the Senate to order. Sergeant Arms will please secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
Lots of energy today. All right, Senators, we are very, very pleased to have Chaplain Antonio Clay Hardy, who attends Bethel AME Church and is the chaplain for Jack and Jill of America in Columbia, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from the 12th District. Please rise for the invocation.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, Senators. It is truly a great honor and privilege to be with you all this morning and take part in this time-honored tradition. So I am a student in high school, and when I was trying to explain to my teachers why I'd be absent today, some of them thought that I was lying to them when I said that I'd be delivering the prayer on the floor of the Senate. So with that being said, I hope you're watching, Mr. Wallace. And I know my mom would be upset if I didn't mention this, but it is International Women's Day. So let us bow our heads for a moment of prayer and reflection. Almighty God, we thank you for this day. Thank you for this historic opportunity in this historic Capitol, in this historic chamber. Now, Lord, I ask that you would humble all of us in this room. Allow us to walk in your light and to lead lives that exemplify and foster servant leadership. Lord, we ask that you rest, rule, and abide in each and every one of us. Lord, we know that through you, the lives of each and every citizen of the state of Maryland, the country, and the entire world will be greatly improved. Lord, we know that through you, the best is always yet to come. Lord, grant these senators today the strength that they need to fight the good fight that you have commissioned. Allow their hearts to be filled with your love, your greatness, your passion, and your mercy. Lord, give them peace that surpasses all understanding, and let not their words be meaningless, but rather impactful and filled with purpose. Lord, I pray that as the late nights start getting longer and the midday naps start becoming more and more necessary, you would provide encouragement that will sustain the members of this General Assembly and help them to do the great work for these people of the state of Maryland. Lord, I ask that you would watch over the Senate, the House, the governor, and all those who represent us. Protect them and cover them, and we will always give your name the praise, the honor, the glory forever and ever. And in your matchless, mighty, and magnificent name we pray. All those in agreement signified by saying amen. Thank you, Mr. President.
Excellent. Very good. Chair recognizes the senator from the 12th District.
Well, that was amazing. So thank you, Antonio Clay Hardy. Just a wonderful, wonderful job. I also want to recognize that he has some family members on the floor today. Father Carlos Hardy, as well as and grandmother Loris Hardy.
Wonderful.
And his mother, whom I've known for many, many years, Regina Clay, is also up in the gallery. Just done a phenomenal, phenomenal job this morning. Someone who's been very active at Wild Lake High School in our district as a sophomore being here to be able to give the prayer before all of us this morning. Also very active with the student member of the board annual convention and the mock trial team and speech and debate team at Wild Lake High School. No surprise, of course, given his wonderful oration this morning. So I asked for his prayer to be journalized this morning.
Without objection, most certainly we will journalize a wonderful invocation. You must not take any midday naps. That's with all that. That's great. And well done, Mom, Dad, Grandma. Well done. Just pretty great. Nice way to start the day. All right. Has everyone recorded their presence? It appears so. The clerk will take the call. With 47 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. Introductions today. None? No? Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, I'd like for you all to give a great warm welcome to one of our council members at large in Prince George's County, Councilmember Calvin Hawkins. Good morning.
Welcome. Yes, Chair recognizes the senator for Prince George's.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to follow up on our delegation chair and just welcome my neighbor and good friend, the at-large council member, actually shares the community He's been a partner with all of Prince George's on constituent concerns and a true leader representing those who may not have otherwise had a voice at the local level. He is a true leader and public servant, and so we're just delighted to have him. All of Prince George's is delighted to have him join us today.
Wonderful. Thank you, yes. I hear he's a great carpool driver too. That's yeah. No, great to see you again. Great to see you. All right, yes, Chair recognizes Senator from Prince George's.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'd like you to join me in welcoming the president of Bowie State University, my neighbor, and president of the oldest HBCU in the state of Maryland, Dr. Aminta Bro.
Welcome, Dr. Bro. Great to see you. Great to see you. Doing wonderful work. Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, please join me in welcoming representatives from the Greater Baltimore Committee who are joining us today. Some of you may have legislative meetings with them, but the new director, Mark Thomas, and Sashi Brown from the Ravens, and representative from Morgan Stanley. Just some of the people who are here.
Welcome, GBC. Thanks for joining us today. Good to see you. Chair recognizes Senator from Prince George's.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. Senate passed. This is the day that we celebrate them, and what great history we have as we look back and see, not so far back, but those who made it possible for us to be here. We have such a person here today, Senator Gloria Lawler, who from our district, who served in a wonderful capacity in our district and has as much energy as she's always had to continue to serve. I was blessed to be able to follow her and blessed to have to know her for so many years, and I want to welcome you for all that you have done, your community and your district. They'll never forget. Welcome today. Thank you very much.
Welcome back, that is. Welcome back, as always. Wonderful. Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. President. With me today, shadowing me, is Barry Jackson. He's the president of the King Farm Citizens Assembly. It's a wonderful, thriving community in Rockville that's transit-friendly, and he's an activist and a friend. And accompanying him is Brennan Mirage, my chief of staff, who is pinch-hitting Yikes. And some of you may remember him as the campaign manager for the great senator from District 33. Welcome them both, please.
Welcome. Excellent. Very good. That's great. All right. The senator from District 33, I think we have some guests and a resolution. Chair recognizes the senator.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this month is Women's History Month. It's also today is International Women's Day. And so we are taking this opportunity to recognize military-connected women. Some of our colleagues today are wearing ribbons to recognize either their military spouses or children of military or women veterans. But today we have with us some women veterans here in the chamber with us. Women have served in America's wars and conflicts through our history. Today, women serve in military occupational specialties, including logistics, munitions, intelligence, combat, and more. Women contribute to a professional, educated, agile, and strong military. So first, we have Dr. Joanne Fisher, the CEO and Director of Women Veterans United, Inc., holding a doctorate in education. Dr. Fisher also served in the United States Navy Reserves on active duty for 15 years. Women's Veteran United, that Dr. Fisher heads, is focused on advocacy to ensure needs are met for women veterans in Maryland, including access to health care and benefit services. We also have Dr. Liz Clark, who also holds a doctorate in education, and she served as an Army officer for over 9 years in the Ordnance Corps and Adjutant General Corps. She currently serves as the Director of the Defense Suicide Prevention Office, the Director of the Defense Suicide Prevention Office and the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. Veterans carry a substantially elevated risk of suicide over the general population, with many Marylanders having been personally affected by this tragedy. Dr. Clark is responsible for policy, oversight, and advocacy of the DoD suicide prevention programs, including outreach and engagement in support of over 2 million service members and 2.5 million military family members worldwide. And I think we can go ahead and read the resolution. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Senator. We have two resolutions, so let's do the first resolution for Dr. Clark. The clerk will read the resolution in full.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Dr. Liz Clark, U.S. Army retired, in recognition of your service as a distinguished military leader and current director and advocate for the Defense Suicide Prevention Program for the U.S. Department of Defense. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution be presented on this 8th day of March, 2023.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? It appears so. The clerk will take the call. Well, Dr. Liz Clark, the Senate of Maryland unanimously celebrates your remarkable work as the new director and advocate for the Defense Suicide Prevention Program for the United States Department of Defense. Thank you for your incredible service. And we have another resolution, Madam Clerk, for Dr. Fisher. If we could read the resolution for Dr. Fisher.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Dr. Joanne Fisher, U.S. Navy retired, in recognition of your service as a U.S. Navy veteran and founder and CFO of the Women's Veteran United Committee, and your 20 years of advocacy for women's veteran benefits. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution be presented on this 8th day of March, 2023.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? If we could get some help for the senator from the 33rd District. Perfect. All right. There we, thank you. All right. The clerk will take the call. Dr. Fisher, thank you for your service and for your remarkable advocacy, both as a veteran and founder and CFO of the Women's Veteran United Committee. Thank you so much and congratulations. Thank you both. Thank you so much for being here today with us. We're really honored by your presence, so thank you all. All right, senators, we also have some distinguished guests, some young men from the St. Ignatius Academy in the gallery behind you. They are here visiting the Capitol to see democracy in action in their schools in the 46th District, and they're just some great young men. Had a chance to take a photo with them earlier, and they're excited to be here, so if we could give them a warm Senate welcome, please. Welcome. We also have another very, very special occasion today. Not a member of the 1983 Club, but our Sergeant at Arms. Today is his wonderful birthday. So to our Sergeant at Arms, James Harrod, happy birthday. It's just one day after the other. You know, it's like just. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. World works in mysterious ways. All right. Let's see. Do we have any other introductions, any other business before we jump in today? If not, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We're going to start with layover bills. We've got a layover calendar number 8. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 469, Senator Elfreth, Task Force Study to study solar tax incentives. Question is on the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable report.
All right, question before the body is on the one committee amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? If not, any objections to the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments for the bill or its title? Chair recognizes the minority leader has an amendment. Pages will please collect and distribute the amendment.
Give me one.
And Senator, just give us one quick moment to get it up on the board. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you may remember from yesterday, this piece of legislation deals with trying to find tax credits that will incentivize solar on areas that are not agricultural fields or not in forested areas. And we've been working on this issue for a number of different years, and I think this is the appropriate piece of legislation now to continue that through a task force to find some ideas that we may not have already uncovered. This amendment just simply adds 2 additional representatives to the task force. One representative will be designated by the Maryland Minority Contractors Association, and one representative will be designated by the Associated Builders and Contractors of Maryland. I ask for to move the amendment.
All right, the senator moves the amendment. Let's hear from the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the minority leader for giving us the amendment before we started today, and the committee considered it and considers it a friendly amendment.
All right, no objections. Any objections to the senator's amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 469 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Let's go to the Committee on Finance. This is calendar number 7. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 135, Senator Carrozza, Worcester County Alcoholic Beverages, Ocean City Promoters License, favorable to amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from the Upper Eastern Shore as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senate Bill 135, as amended, establishes an Ocean City Promoters License in Worcester County and authorizes the County Board of License Commissioners to issue the license to a for-profit organization to sell beer, wine, and liquor at entertainment events held on a premise that is 1, within the town of Ocean City, 2, owned by the town of Ocean City, and 3, designated and approved in writing by the Ocean City Police Department. The board may adopt regulations to restrict the number of licenses issued each year and establish requirements to govern the sale and service of beer, wine, and liquor at the events. Amendment number 1 alters the purpose paragraph. Amendment number 2 clarifies that the bill is applicable to licenses in the town of Ocean City, specifies that the approval must be provided by the Ocean City Police Department rather than the mayor and city council, and specifies that the approval must be in writing, and clarifies that the applicable fee is per entertainment event. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 135 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 304, Carroll County Senators, Carroll County Alcoholic Beverages, modification of seating requirements, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from Carroll County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Senate Bill 304 modifies seating requirements, it's a local bill, seating requirements for Class B, Class BR, and Class C beer, wine, and liquor licenses in Carroll County. Currently, our law has the licenses requiring the holder to have regular seating for at least 50 individuals, but it excludes seats at bars and counters. So this bill simply changes that requirement to allow for up to 15 seats at bars and counters to be included in that 50-seat calculation. There are no amendments, no opposition at the committee hearing, and I would move the adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 304 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 306, Carroll County Senators, Carroll County Alcoholic Beverages, Multiple Event Entertainment Licenses, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from Carroll County's floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 306, also a Carroll County local bill, repeals what was a 40-day limit for which certain multiple event entertainment licenses issued in Carroll County could be used in a calendar year, and it allows for 41 or more events per year. It sets a license for 41 or more events per year at $2,000 annual fee for that license. And again, no amendments and no opposition, so I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 306 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 393, Carroll County Senators, Carroll County Alcoholic Beverage Licenses, Residency Requirement, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from Carroll County as floor leader.
You know, there are workhorses and show horses, Mr. President. So my colleague here advises me we could have done these all in one bill, which they came in at separate times. So next year we'll do a better job. But Senate Bill 393 is a local Carroll County bill, and it requires that currently our current law requires that at least one applicant for a liquor license in Carroll County be a Carroll County resident. This actually repeals that and says you must be at least a state resident. So the license would remain valid as long as at least one of the applicants remains a resident of the state of Maryland. Again, no amendments and no opposition, and I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 393 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 472, Senator Elfreth, City of Annapolis, Alcoholic Beverages Art Establishment, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. So Senate Bill 472 establishes an art establishment beer and wine license in the City of Annapolis that authorizes the license holder to sell or serve beer and wine at retail for on-premises consumption. The City of Annapolis Board of License Commissioners may issue the license to a nonprofit organization engaged in the display, sale, or demonstration of art by an artist or group of artists, the instruction of participating in clients in creating art or live performances. So Amendment 1 changes the purpose paragraph, and Amendment 2 just really clarifies that it's a qualifying nonprofit organization must primarily be engaged in the arts and entertainment activities specified in the bill. It also prohibits the issuance of a license to an organization that has a corporate purpose that is not dedicated to the arts, and increases the annual license fee to $1,000. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Any discussion on the amendments? Any objection? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 472 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 519, Charles County Senators, Charles County Alcoholic Beverages, Unlicensed Establishment, favorable.
I assure you, students, we do more than just alcohol in the General Assembly, but for this morning, it might not feel like it. Chair recognizes the senator from Charles County as the floor leader.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 519 closes a loophole in the law in Charles County that allows unlicensed establishment to have parties where people bring their own alcohol. Most of them are fine, but there are a few trouble spots that the sheriff office have no control over. There's no law they can shut them down with. So this bill closes that loophole. It says that these establishments cannot have unlimited parties, bringing alcohol and causing all kind of mayhem in the county. And so Senate Bill 519 has no amendments. It has the full support of the Charles County Senators, and I move for a favorable adoption of the report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 519 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, we've got another alcohol calendar from Finance. This is report number 8. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 440, Senator Hayes, Baltimore City Alcoholic Beverages District's Legislative District Plan references, favorable. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 440 is an emergency local bill. It's probably one of the simplest bills that we'll have this year. The complexities of Baltimore City liquor statute is often restricted to the legislative boundaries. This simply updates the boundaries to the 2022 redistricting plan as opposed to the 2012 redistricting plan. There are no amendments. There's no fiscal impact. There was no opposition. I move the adoption of a favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 440 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 588, Senator Hayes, Baltimore City, 40th District, Alcoholic Beverages, favorable to amendments.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 588 expands the geographic area of the 40th District Alcoholic Beverages restrictions of hours. It also authorized the Board of Liquor Licenses to issue a Class C beer, wine, and liquor license to 3600 block of Hickory Avenue, which is VFW Hall. There's two amendments. One makes changes to the title of the bill. Number 2 authorizes an A7 beer, wine, and liquor license in a certain area of the 40th District Beverage District to be solely in the alcoholic beverage districts are sold only as part of a gift basket or floral arrangement and other conditions are met. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move a favorable amendments as well as the adoption of a favorable committee report.
We've got the gift baskets. We'll have duckpin bowling later. It's like, I love this. All right. Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 588 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 654, Senator Gallion, Harford County Alcoholic Beverages Class HC Health Club License, favorable to amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, Senate Bill 654 establishes a 6-day and 7-day Class HC, which is health club, beer and wine licenses in Harford County. The Harford County Board of License Commissioners may issue a 6-day or 7-day Class HC license to a person who sells health club services, has at least 150 members, who pays dues, and owns or leases real property in the county for use as a for-profit or nonprofit health club facility. And to further this, it was advertised that this would be accompanied with pickleball, which is the fastest growing sport in America. So this is an important measure. The First Amendment makes no changes to the bill. The Second Amendment requires a health club to offer an indoor and outdoor swimming pool and pickleball courts to qualify for the license. So pickleball is required. Only allows a license holder to sell beer and wine in a bar area, at a swimming pool, or at an indoor lounge, or both, from 1 to 9 p.m. There's a time restriction, and requires a license holder to provide prepared prepackaged food or snacks at all times when beer and wine are sold. There was no opposition at the committee hearing to the bill as amended. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections to the amendments? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 654 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. You know, my wife just joined a pickleball league, and they are obsessed with this market. It's like obsession. Chair recognizes the senator. Oh, yeah. No, so it's all the rage. It is coming. It is coming. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 738, Senator Gallion, Harford County Alcoholic Beverages Performing Arts Theater License, favorable one amendment.
All right. Who do we have? Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th as the floor leader.
I apologize, Mr. President. I was going to get up and talk some more about pickleball, but I don't think everybody's in the mood for that. And I did not mention the previous bill and this bill are both Harford County bills. Senate Bill 738 establishes a performing arts theater beer and wine license in Harford County. The Harford County Board of License Commissioners may use the license for use on the premises of a performing arts theater operated by a nonprofit organization. The bill authorizes the license holder to sell or serve beer and wine 1 hour before and after a performance, during a performance and intermission, and during a reception. There's an amendment that alters the authorized times for the sale or serving of beer and wine so that it includes during a reception 1 hour before and 1 hour after a performance. It requires a license holder to purchase beer and wine from an authorized and licensed wholesaler. There is no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the amendments and adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 1 committee amendment is adopted. Are there any, on the favorable report as amended, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 738 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 821, Senator McKay, Garrett County Alcoholic Beverages Act of 2023, favorable.
Senate Bill 821. Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President.
This time I'm presenting a bill from Garrett County. This Senate Bill 821 revises the framework for the expiration of alcoholic beverage licenses in Garrett County. Among other revisions, the bill establishes that a license expires 6 months after the license holder has closed the business or stopped active alcoholic beverage operations. A license holder may request to extend the life of the license due to hardship for up to an additional 6 months under certain circumstances. In addition, the bill decreases from 25 to 10 rooms the requirement of a Class beer, wine, and liquor license held by a hotel or motel, expands the authorization of a gift basket permit to include alcoholic beverages purchased from a wholesaler, and extends the hours for sale for Sunday sales of alcoholic beverages in the county from 6 a.m. to midnight. The bill also allows a holder of a multiple event and Class C multiple day alcoholic beverage license to hold another alcoholic beverage license on a different class or nature. There are no amendments to the bill. There is no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption and favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 821 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 847, Senator Hayes, Baltimore City Alcoholic Beverages Violation Procedures and Fines, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 847 alters the revocation and suspension procedures of the Baltimore City Liquor Board of Commissioners, permitting the board to offer a compromise to a license holder for alleged violations instead of conducting a full hearing. The bill also increases the maximum fines for certain violations of an alcohol beverage article applicable to Baltimore City. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of a favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 847 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. We got another one from Finance. This is calendar number 11. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 798, Senator Ferguson, Declaration of Rights, Right to Reproductive Freedom, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 798 is a proposed constitutional amendment that, if approved by the voters at the next general election, enshrines in the Declaration of Rights an individual's fundamental right to reproductive freedom, including but not limited to the ability to make and effectuate decisions to prevent, continue, or end one's own pregnancy. The proposed constitutional amendment prohibits the state from directly or indirectly denying, burdening, or abridging the right unless justified by a compelling state interest achieved by the least restrictive means. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the minority leader on the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This bill came out of committee late last night. Could we special order this till the appropriate time tomorrow?
Any objections?
No.
Without objections, we will special order the bill at the appropriate time tomorrow. All right. We've got a report out of Education, Energy, and the Environment. This is number 13. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 341, Senator Feldman, Public Senior Higher Education Institutions Reproductive Health Services Plan Requirements, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes Chair of the committee is the floor
Thank
leader.
you, Mr. President. We have an issue on our college campuses, and by way of a little background before I explain the bill entirely, and the problem is as follows, and here's some statistics that are quite chilling. 38% of college dropouts in our institutions are a result of a pregnancy. In another study, another organization, 61% of women who have a baby drop out of college before they get their degrees. CDC report in the 15 to 24-year-old category demographic, half of all sexually transmitted infections in the United States are in that age bracket. Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault, 1 in 5 women are sexually assaulted during college. Just again, a little bit of background. So the issue of reproductive health care services and access is a big issue for college students. And so what this piece of legislation does, Senate Bill 341, attempts to address that. So specifically, the bill requires each public senior higher education institution in consultation with students. So students are involved in developing and implementing a reproductive health service plan to provide at the institution and refer students. So there's also a network, referrals, a comprehensive range of reproductive health services. These plans must be developed by August 1, 2024 and updated annually. The Maryland Department of Health, if necessary, can provide assistance to that higher education institution in developing the reproductive health services plan. I would say that many of our our institutions already have plans like this, but this puts in place, codifies this for all of our University of Maryland system institutions. It shouldn't depend on what institution you happen to be at to have access to these reproductive health care services. There are two amendments. Amendment number 1 adds co-sponsors and makes technical changes to the bill's title. Amendment number 2 clarifies which public senior institutions of higher education the bill applies to, and requires the University of Baltimore to provide contraception through on-campus retail establishments or vending machines instead of establishing the plan required by the bill. The concentration of this bill, candidly, why some of the institutions are excluded, is there's a focus here on those institutions that have residential housing, have healthcare centers. It was determined that this is where the most impact of plans like this could be. And some of these institutions do not have, again, campuses with residential or healthcare centers, et cetera. So that is amendment number 2. So with that, Mr. President, I'd move the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the minority whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I can ask a question of the floor leader.
Will the floor leader yield?
Yes, sir.
Sarah, may proceed.
Thank you very much. Can I ask you, you mentioned some of the issues with people having to drop out, women when they have young women being pregnant, causing them to drop out, correct? That was one of the issues.
Yeah, well, I think the statistics specifically I cited was that 38% of college dropouts are a result of pregnancy, and then others who have babies end up not getting their college degree. So this is an issue on college campuses, and all this bill does require is that the universities come up with a plan for access, networks, referrals. Does not require, by the way, that anything be done on campus necessarily. The referrals and networks are also part of the potential plan. So.
No, but just curious, because that's an important. Is there anything in the bill that also just helps strengthen protections for pregnant women as they are in school to be sure they're not discriminated against, or that the schools are complying with all appropriate?
No, the bill's silent on that.
Okay.
I mean, that could be a separate bill, but that's not the focus of this bill.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see if we could special order this for the appropriate time tomorrow to purposes of amendment.
Senator seeks to special order that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Any objections on the special order? All right. Without objection, we will special order the bill to the appropriate time tomorrow. All right. We've got a report from the Committee on Judicial Proceedings. This is report number 8. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 33, Senator Carter, Correctional Services, Medical Parole, Life Imprisonment, favorable to amendments.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is a technical fix to the legislation we passed a couple of years ago that removed the governor from parole decisions. As amended, the bill repeals provisions related to the gubernatorial approval of a decision of the Maryland Parole Commission to grant medical parole to an inmate serving a term of life imprisonment. There are 2 committee amendments. 1 is technical. 2 repeals additional provision of existing law referring to the Parole Commission making recommendations to the governor regarding the parole for inmates serving terms of life imprisonment. I would move the amended committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections to the amendments? Yes, Chair recognizes the minority whip on the amendments.
I think my question may be on the overall bill before we adopt the second reading report. Should I converse now, or? What's the appropriate time?
Now would be fine.
Okay, thank you. If the floor leader
Question
would
for the
mind
floor
yielding
leader.
for a question.
Senator may proceed.
So we have a lot flying out here, a lot of big issues that are important to everybody here. So I hadn't had the chance to read the amended bill closely. Can you talk, does this allow for someone who's convicted of basically any crime once they're 65 and have turned, can you go over that one more time?
No, this is specifically medical parole, which is already in our statute. And the issue here is that when we passed the bill a couple of sessions ago to get the governor out of parole decisions, we technically left out this section for medical parole because it's in a different section of the code. And so medical parole under our statute is a licensed medical professional has determined that an inmate is chronically debilitated, incapacitated, suffers, I can't read my own writing, suffers mental illness or physically is incapable of presenting a danger to society. According to the testimony that we received in committee, since we passed the bill in 2021, allowing for parole decisions that didn't involve the governor, there were 5 inmates that fell into this category that have passed away in prison because the parole commission made a decision, but waiting for the governor to act.
So this is because the governor is still involved in the process?
Just this medical.
In this part?
These chronically ill people.
Okay.
It's all
Okay.
just chronically ill people.
Understand. Understand. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, questions on the amendments? Any discussion? Any objection with the amendments? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 33 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 71, Senator Brooks, execution on a judgment, child support arrears, workers' compensation. Favorable report is favorable with 1 amendment.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill specifies that 25% of the net recovery by a debtor on a claim for workers' compensation benefits is subject to execution on a judgment for a child support arrearage. There's 1 amendment which removes from the bill a provision stating that the bill does not limit recovery under the Federal Consumer Credit Protection Act. The vote of the committee was unanimous. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 71 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 303, Senator Mouts, Talbot County Speed Monitoring Systems, intersection of Maryland Route 333, Oxford Road, and Bonfield Avenue. Favorable 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 33, as amended, authorizes the placement of 1 speed monitoring system at the intersection of Maryland Route 33, Oxford Road, and Bonfield Avenue in Talbot County, subject to existing signage and placement requirements for speed cameras. The bill also requires a real-time display of a driver's traveling speed. There are 2 amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical, and amendment number 2 allows funds collected after recovery to be used for road and pedestrian safety only in the town of Oxford. I move the adoption of the amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 303 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 705, Chair Judicial Proceedings Committee, Vehicle Laws, Certificate of Title, Surviving Spouse. Favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 1 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, this bill, colleagues, prohibits the MVA from charging a fee for a new certificate of title to a surviving spouse when not listed as a joint owner of said vehicle. There was no committee amendments. There was no opposition to this bill, and therefore the committee passed it unanimously. So therefore, Mr. President, I move with favorable Senate Bill 705.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 705 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 706, Chair, Judicial Proceedings Committee, Child Support, Reporting of Employment Information, Independent Contractors, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 44th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This departmental bill requires an independent contractor's employer to report specified information to Child Support Administration of the Department of Human Services. There were no amendments. The vote was unanimous. Mr. President, I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 706 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 709, Chair, Judicial Proceedings Committee, Motor Vehicles, Commercial Driver's License, Instruction Permits, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This departmental bill extends the term of a commercial driver's instructional permit from 180 days to 1 year. The bill also exempts a holder of a commercial driver's license who applies for renewal from the requirement to pass a vision test if the individual has a current certificate of physical examination on file with the MVA. The vote of the committee was unanimous. I move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 709 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 711, Chair, Judicial Proceedings, Child Support, Sports, Wagering, and Fantasy Competition, Intercept, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 44th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This departmental bill extends the application of Child Support Intercept program to specify payouts from sports wagering licensees, online sports wagering operators, and fantasy competition operators. The vote was unanimous. Mr. President, I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 711 is hereby ordered. That's kind of interesting. Printed for third reader. Sports wagering 711. Yeah. Clerk, read the next bill. It's a little stuff, you know.
Senate Bill 867, Senator Zucker, Vehicle Law Special and Commemorative Registration Plate, Maryland Heroes, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 44th as the floor leader.
Thank you very much. I like this bill, and I know you all will too. This bill requires Motor Vehicle Administration, in consultation with the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture, to design and issue a special registration plate designated as the Maryland Heroes Commemorative Registration Plate. Any surplus money collected in fees related to the plates must be distributed to the MCAAHC. There were no amendments. Mr. President, I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th District on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the floor leader yield for a question?
Appears so. Senator may proceed.
Thank you. I know that the Maryland Ag Education Foundation relies on their what they call ag tags to fund that Maryland Ag Education Program. So was that brought up as a concern that they could potentially be losing their source of funding?
No, it was not. In fact, when I look at the committee's testimony, there was no opposition at all to this.
Okay. Is there any way we could maybe special order this tomorrow so I could check in with
Mr. President?
The senator has moved to special order the bill. Chair recognizes the. Well, let's check with the floor leader on the motion to special order.
If the I'll rescind that motion for now. If the Budget and Tax Committee
would the floor leader wish to yield to the sponsor?
Sure.
Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I appreciate the senator's question. We wanted to do two things with this piece of legislation. One is honor our Maryland heroes, all while we have a companion piece of legislation that's now pending in front of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee that would help with any revenue loss with both the Maryland, with MAIF and the Chesapeake Bay Trust. We're working very closely with both, and in this current posture, neither the Chesapeake Bay Trust or MAIF have an issue with this bill.
Terrific. I will remove the request for a special order. That answered my question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Question is on the favorable report. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 867 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Is that the end of that calendar? I believe so. All right. We have got another one from Judicial Proceedings. This is report number 9. Number 9. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 40, Senator Sidnor, Public Information Act, Inspections of Recording from Body-worn Digital Recording Devices, favorable one amendment.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 44th District as the floor leader.
Thank you very much. This is a bill that this body has seen before. As amended, the bill sets forth the circumstances under which the custodian of records, in accordance with the Maryland's Public Information Act, must deny or allow inspection of recordings from a body-worn digital recording device worn by law enforcement officers. The bill's provisions do not apply to public records that has been entered into evidence in a court proceeding and may not be construed to affect the discovery or evidentiary rights of a party to a civil suit or criminal prosecution. There is one amendment which adds the depiction of the death of a law enforcement officer that occurs in the performance of the officer's duties to the list of required denials. I would ask that the President to move the adoption of the amendment in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment in the favorable committee report. On the amendment, Chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the floor leader yield?
Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wonder if there is a time limit on getting access to this in terms of storage, the cost of storage, cyber security, privacy, so that it doesn't get hacked. I just wonder, could you speak to those issues, please?
Not in this legislation. I believe this General Assembly has looked at those kind of issues and left that up to local departments to deal with. So it's not in this bill.
So 24 counties could each handle it differently?
At this point, that's how it works.
Could we possibly special order this until tomorrow so I can talk to the sponsor of the bill and learn a little bit more?
Why don't we lay it, well, I mean, unless there's if we lay it over.
Lay over is fine.
All right.
Either way.
Senator moves to lay over the bill.
Yeah,
the
that's
motion
fine.
would be in order, and the
Appreciate
bill
it.
and the amendment will be laid over under the
Thank you,
under the
Mr.
rule.
President.
All right, clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 257, Senator Waldstreicher, Task Force to Assess the Viability for Free Cell Phone Calls for State Incarcerated Individuals, Keeping Families Connected Act of 2023, favorable to amendments.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. We generally don't charge prisoners for the cost of their own incarceration. We don't charge them a nightly room rate. We don't charge them for their food. But we do charge inmates to keep in touch with their loved ones, and many states have abandoned this practice. This bill establishes the task force to assess the viability for no-charge phone calls for state incarcerated individuals. The task force must, one, analyze data related to no-charge prison phone calls in other states, and two, evaluate the projected program costs to the state of Maryland. Lastly, they must evaluate and make recommendations to allow for phone calls to be made without charge by individuals confined in state correctional facilities. There are two committee amendments. Amendment number 1 alters the name of the task force. Amendment number 2 alters the membership of the task force. Mr. President, I move the amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, Chair recognizes the minority leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The floor leader would yield for a question.
The floor leader yield. Appears so. Senator may proceed.
Happy to.
Thank you very much. What is the way that the prisons monitor the phone calls that are going out?
They record the phone calls. This bill would not change that. They need to continue recording those phone calls. A lot of people commit crimes from jail utilizing the phone system, and the prisons need to be able to do so. Obviously, calls between lawyers and their clients are not recorded. So the cost of phone calls in prisons are higher than they are the cost of a phone call between me and you because of that recordation. But over time, those costs have gone down. We kind of mentioned this in the previous bill in terms of storage costs in the cloud. Those costs have dropped precipitously.
Okay, so the monitoring of phone calls will remain in effect. Do these phone calls, and I'm looking at the title of the bill, do they have to be made to family members or can they be made to anybody?
They can be made to anybody. Our inmates have limited time that they are allowed to use on the phone, so most of these phone calls are to friends and loved ones because they can't be on the phone forever. Nonetheless, it did get brought up in the hearing that perhaps one thing that the task force can look at is limiting the scope of no-charge phone calls. In other words, no-charge phone calls could be for family members, but other phone calls might continue to be charged to the inmate. But that's something for the task force
That would
to
seem
consider.
a little more appropriate, but okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Absolutely.
President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, questions on the two amendments. Chair recognizes Senator from Frederick on the amendments.
Thank you. If the floor leader would yield.
Senator may proceed.
Happy to.
So I just want to reiterate, so these calls can be made to anyone, and you're saying that the calls are still recorded. Is that correct, Senator?
So I'm getting information that actually there is the inmate must provide and the correctional facility must approve a list of people that they're allowed to make phone calls to. And what was the second question?
It's recorded. They're all recorded?
They're all recorded. Yes, except to the lawyer.
So they're all recorded, but they're not monitored all the time. We need to be clear on that.
I think that's correct. Nothing about this is intended to or does change current law when it comes to the recordation.
We're just going to let them do it for free on taxpayer dollar.
So we're not doing that under this bill. This bill is to assess whether Maryland should do that or should not. Other states have abandoned the practice of charging prisoners for them.
Okay, are we taking into consideration also, I know we had a hearing about the drones around these. I mean, this has been a common practice that these drones have been set up through these phone calls.
We did have a hearing on a drone bill, yes.
And did we set up the task force to investigate that part, or is that a part of this also? Because that's a concern of mine, that they're coordinating through these efforts on these phone calls to establish when they're going to be in the yard and when these illegal items are being dropped into the compound. Is that a part of this?
I share your concern about drones on prison property, and I think we have a bill to deal with that issue in front of our committee.
So it's not a part of this concern?
So this bill is only as to the costs of inmate phone calls and whether Maryland should join other states.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. On the two amendments, any further discussion? If not, any objections to the two amendments? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 257 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 385, Senator McKay, Criminal Procedure Restitution Orders Recording Fees Favorable.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, colleagues, Senate Bill 385, this bill extends the waiver fee for recording an order of restitution to all courts. It simply ensures that all parties who are receiving restitution due to a judgment by the court will not have to pay a fee to record that order. This had no committee amendments. There was no opposition to the bill, and it passed out of the committee unanimously. So therefore, I move with a favorable report on Senate Bill 385. Thank you, sir.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 385 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 527, Senator Waldstreicher, Fire, Rescue, or Emergency Medical Services Entities Peer Support Programs, favorable.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill alters the term Peer Support Counseling Program to be Peer Support Program. It's a technical fix. There are no committee amendments. Mr. President, I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 527 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 707, Chair Judicial Proceedings Committee, Public Safety, Deputy State Fire Marshal, Prohibition. Favorable.
Chair recognizes Senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This departmental bill requires each deputy state fire marshal, including appointees to the office of the state fire marshal, to remain in probationary period for a term of 2 years after their appointment to the position for adequate training. In addition, under the bill, a deputy state fire marshal is entitled to the pay specified for the new rank in the same step that the deputy state fire marshal occupied before their promotion. There are no amendments to this bill. I move the committee favorable report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted, not amended. It's just adopted. Any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 707 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next. That's it for that calendar. But sticking with judicial proceedings, report number 10. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 67, Senator Beidle, Clerk of Courts, Circuit Courts, Civil Commission's presentation, reporting favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 1 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 67 amends the statutory provisions relating to the duties of the clerk of a circuit court regarding civil commissions and the requirement for appointees. There were no committee amendments. The committee passed this unanimously. So therefore, Mr. President, I move with a favorable report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Question on the report? Let's just make sure. Do we have everything? Okay, we're good. All right. Okay, question is on the report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 67 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 450, Senator Guile, real property limitations on summoning law enforcement or emergency services prohibition, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many of us have folks in our lives who require additional emergency attention, folks who are elderly who live in our homes, children with disabilities, folks who may be medically fragile. Surprisingly, some landlords put in their leases that they can evict you if you call emergency services too frequently. And so this bill prohibits a landlord from including such provisions in a lease or penalizing a tenant for the actions of another individual solely because the individual summoned the assistance of law enforcement or emergency services. There are no committee amendments, Mr. President. I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 450 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 478, Senator Sidnor, Maryland Lynching Truth and Reconciliation Commission reporting and sunset extension, favorable one amendment.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill extends from June 30th, 2024 to June 30th, 2026, the termination date for the Maryland Lynching Truth and Reconciliation Commission. This bill also extends until December 1st, 2025, the deadline by which the commission must submit a final report and its findings to the governor and to us. There was one amendment, and this is the first time this has ever happened with the bill that I've had. The entire committee it were added as sponsors. Mr. President, I move adoption of the amendment in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is amended, is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 478 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 486, Senator McCray, Baltimore City Sheriff staffing, favorable one amendment.
Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill increases from 1 to 3 the number of assistant sheriffs that must be appointed by the Baltimore City Sheriff. The bill also specifically authorizes the sheriff to appoint up to 4 social workers and authorizes the sheriff to appoint an additional sworn or civilian personnel funded by the sheriff's operating budget. The bill has one amendment. It adds a sponsor, me. So I'd move the adoption of the favorable committee report. Thank you.
All right. Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any objections from the floor leader? No. If not, the one committee amendment is adopted. On the amended report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 486 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 535, Senator James, Human Relations, Housing Discrimination, Service Dogs, and Guide Dogs, favorable to amendments.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think most of you know under current law, people who are blind or deaf have a right to have their service dogs live with them, even if a lease has a no pet policy, and they certainly can't be charged any extra fees or costs. So Senate Bill 535 ensures that these highly trained dogs, when they must be retired, are allowed to continue to live with their owners. There are two minor amendments. The first is technical. The second defines a service dog and removes reference to a guide dog. There was no opposition. There was an unanimous vote in committee. I move for the adoption of the two amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 535 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 651, Senator Carter, Real Estate Brokerage Services, and Termination of Residential Real Estate Contracts, the Anthony Mormon Act. Favorable.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires that a real estate broker or an escrow agent distribute trust money to a purchaser if the purchaser determines that a residential real estate contract under the terms of a contingency clause after written notice of a request to return the money is provided to the holder of the trust money and the seller and specified procedures are satisfied. So in plain language, this bill simply would require that within 30 days, if a seller does not indicate that there's a dispute or reason not to return the money would return, a deposit money would return to a residential home purchaser. There are no amendments, and I'd move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 651 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 792, Senator West, Estates and Trusts, Registered Domestic Partnerships. Favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill allows for registered domestic partnerships to have the same effect as marriage under various provisions of the Estates and Trusts article of the Maryland Code. Among other things, it establishes the requirements that must be met for a domestic partnership to be registered with the Register of Wills and how the domestic partnership may be terminated. It also provides for the benefits for which the surviving partner of a registered domestic partnership qualifies. And finally, the bill removes certain terms from the definition of child under the Estates and Trusts article and alters provisions governing the distribution of an intestate estate. That's an estate not governed by a will. There were no amendments to this bill. The vote of the committee was unanimous. I move for the amendment for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 792 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 797, Senator Heddleman, Task Force on Preventing and Countering Elder Abuse. Favorable, one amendment.
Chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the title suggests, the bill establishes a task force on preventing and countering elder abuse. Staffed by the Maryland Department of Aging, the task force must study existing laws, policies, and practices related to elder abuse and other crimes commonly committed against older adults, and make recommendations regarding changes to the state law, policy, and practice that would aid in preventing elder abuse. There's an interim report, December 31st, 2023, and a final report, December 31st, 2024. There are amendments. The amendment adds 4 additional members to the task force. Our committee loves our elderly and does not tolerate elder abuse, so the support for this was unanimous. I move the adoption of the amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the favorable report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 797 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. We have, JPR has been busy, been very busy. We've got report number 11 from Judicial Proceedings. Clerk, read the first bill.
Senate Bill 1, Senator Waldstreicher, Criminal Law, Wearing, Carrying, or Transporting Firearms Restrictions, Gun Safety Act of 2023, favorable to amendments.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As many of you know, in June, the United States Supreme Court struck down a provision of New York law that Maryland also had in a case called Bruin. The bill in front of you eliminates the unconstitutional provision in Maryland law and makes changes in reaction to the Bruin decision and how we're going to treat firearms in a post-Bruin world. The bill prohibits, with certain exceptions, a person from wearing, carrying, or transporting a firearm in certain sensitive locations, and 2, wearing, carrying, or transporting a firearm onto specified real property. A violation of either prohibition is guilty of a misdemeanor. The amended bill also alters the requirements and procedures relating to the issuance and renewal of a permit to carry, wear, or transport a handgun. The bill's provisions relating to specified requirements for issuance or renewal of a handgun permit do not apply to permits issued before the effective date. In other words, they're grandfathered in. The bill's provisions are specifically made severable. There are 2 committee amendments, Mr. President. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 prohibits a person from wearing, carrying, or transporting a firearm in certain sensitive locations, or wearing, carrying, or transporting a firearm onto certain real property under certain circumstances, and alters the requirements and procedures related to the issuance and renewal of a handgun permit. Mr. President, I move to lay over Senate Bill 1 under the rule.
Let's move. We're going to move the 2 amendments in the favorable committee report, and then subsequently move to lay the bill over. Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendments will lay over under the rule. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 185, Senator Bidel, Maryland.
Just one moment. Sorry. Chair recognizes the senator. Point of parliamentary inquiry. Oh wait, sorry. Senator from 37th. Let's see. What purpose does the senator rise?
I'm sorry, Mr. President. I had a quick question. The bill that was just up that we were discussing, I was trying to ask a question.
Oh, apologies. So the senator's motion is it's an immediate layover before the 80th day, but it'll be back up tomorrow. I think there's additional amendments that are being worked on. So,
is it available online? Is the bill? Can you read it?
The amendment should be available in the floor system. The reprint should be available up too.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It should be if in the tab that is amendment. In the reprint, yes, in the reprint. The tab that is reprint is where the reprint would be. That makes sense. Whoops, forgot about that part. I think that was added. I don't know if that button was always there. All right, let's see. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 185, Senator Bidel, Maryland State Police Gun Center firearms surrendered under final protective orders, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a data bill. The bill expands the purpose of the Maryland State Police Gun Center to include the tracking, screening, and vetting of all firearms surrendered under final protective orders in the state. The bill requires the center to create and maintain a statewide database to track information on firearms surrendered under final protective orders in the state. And it also requires each law enforcement agency to report to the center specified information on firearms surrendered under final protective orders issued in the jurisdiction of the law enforcement agency. There are no committee amendments. The vote of the committee was unanimous. I hereby move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are no amendments, so I just want to special order this bill to the appropriate time tomorrow. I'd like it to travel with the rest of the other bills, so is that tomorrow?
Tomorrow works. Any objections? Without objection, we'll special order the bill to the appropriate time tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
All right. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 858, Senator Smith, Firearm Safety Storage Requirements and Youth Suicide Prevention, Jalen's Law, favorable 5 amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill expands and modifies the reckless endangerment statute to include children, minors, and prohibited persons. It also directs the Deputy Secretary of the Public Health Services to develop a youth suicide prevention firearm storage guide and develop that by January 1st, 2024, And the third part of the bill, it provides for a $250 tax credit for the purchase of a safe storage device. Mr. President, there are 5 committee amendments. One is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions of the bill and modifies and expands the reckless endangerment statute prohibition. Amendment number 3 alters provisions of the bill relating to youth suicide prevention and firearm storage guide. Amendment number 4 strikes and the required budget bill appropriation. And amendment number 5 establishes a tax credit. Mr. President, I move for the adoption of 5 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 5 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill and the 5 committee amendments lay over under the rules.
Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendments will lay over under the rule. All right, we've got a special order calendar. This is, first one here is number 20. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 144, Senator Feldman, Public Utilities, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Programs, Energy Performance Targets, and Low-Income Housing. Question is on the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable report.
All right, questions on the one amendment? Do we have a subsequent amendment?
Yes, Mr. President, significant bill, and since the special order, we want to make sure we get this right, and I do have some substitute amendments for some corrective language that we picked up since the special order. So I guess procedurally, I'd move to withdraw that one committee amendment that I proffered the other day, and move to with these substitute amendments that I distribute, I suppose.
All right. Let's say, are there any objections to the withdrawal of the committee amendments? Without objection, the committee amendments are withdrawn. Senator has a substitute committee amendment. Pages will distribute the amendments. Let's get just one moment to get it up on the board. All right, Senator, may I explain the amendment?
Yeah, I mentioned it the first time. These substitute amendments strike language referring to contractor preferences for women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned businesses, and add requirements for the task force to develop policy recommendations for and collaborate on greenhouse gas emission policy recommendations. I mentioned, I think, when we had it the first time, that we had to strike the language on the preferences because the Attorney General recommended that that was out of bounds constitutionally because there was no disparity study. So this does that again and adds some corrective language to get the bill perfect. Important piece of legislation. We want to get it right. I'd move for the adoption of these substitute committee amendments.
All right, the floor leader, or chairman moves for the adoption of the substitute amendments. Chair recognizes the minority leader on the substitute amendments.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just again, trying to get an idea what this is doing. Can I make a motion to lay over the amendments under the rule?
Believe this one has not been laid over, so the senator's motion would be in order.
It was laid over, but it was laid over under the amendments that were just withdrawn.
The layover request is on the underlying question, and so special order would be.
Then the motion would be changed to a special order until appropriate time tomorrow.
Any objections?
I would be inclined to resist, but since the minority leader is such a nice guy, we will give him one additional day. But this is important, Bill. I want to have the discussion that I know is coming from him on this, but it will be tomorrow. No additional special orders, my friend. Okay.
All right. No objection to special order because of the minority leader being such a nice guy. The bill will be special order at the appropriate time tomorrow. All right. Let's see. We've got another special order. This is number 21. Clerk, read the bill.
Senate Bill 379, Senator Kagan, Election Law, Ballots, Processing and Reporting Procedures. Question is on the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable report.
All right. Question is on the one committee amendment. Any discussion? Chair recognizes the minority whip on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just ask that the bill and the amendment lie over under the rule.
I believe, Madam Clerk, this one was special ordered yesterday. Is that correct?
Just to be clear, I have an amendment that's going to be coming. That's why we're laying it over.
Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will be laid over under the rule. All right. We've got one more special order, number 22. Clerk, read the bill.
Senate Bill 491, Charles County Senators, Charles County Board of Education, School Bus Contractor Employees Negotiations. Question as on adoption of the favorable report as amended.
All right, question is on the favorable report as amended. Senator has an amendment?
Yes, Mr. President.
Let's adopt the report, and then we'll take up the amendment right after. Are there any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Senator has an amendment. The pages will collect and distribute the amendment. And Senator, if you just give us one moment to get it uploaded to the computer. That's funny. Huh.
Thank you.
Senator may explain the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Senators, Charles County has a commissioner form of government, and the presiding officer is commissioner president. So this amendment corrects the language in the bill to say commissioner president.
Huh. I didn't know that. Commissioner president, not
Correct.
commission president.
Correct.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Learned something new. All right. Senator moves the amendment. Chair recognizes Senator. The floor leader. Floor leader on the amendment.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the senator for sharing the amendment, and it's good with the committee.
No objections from the committee. Any objections on the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 491 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Senators, the desk is clear. That was faster than expected today. Tomorrow's going to be long. Tomorrow's going to be long. Friday's going to be longer. So eat breakfast. Hearty breakfast. Stick to your ribs. Let's see. Chair of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Finance will continue bill. Excuse me. It's all this pollen. Senate Finance will continue bill hearings at 1 p.m. today, and we'll also have a voting session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The pollen with the 35 degrees outside. Yeah. Chair recognizes the Chair of Education, Energy, and the Environment.
The committee will meet today at 1 p.m. for bill hearings.
1 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair of Budget and Tax.
1 p.m. for bill hearings.
1 p.m. it is. Chair of Judicial Proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet today at 1 p.m. for bill hearings.
1 p.m. All right. Executive nominations.
Mr. Chairman, you're right, Mr. President. Thank you. We do need to meet in the caucus room right after the floor so we can take a vote on those 5 names that needed dates for their start and end for the schedule. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the Executive Nominations Committee will meet in the Silver Room immediately following session. All right. Any other? Yes, Chair or the Republican Caucus.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Republican Caucus will have a meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. in our conference room.
Thank you, Mr. Minority Whip. All right. Any further announcements, delegations, caucuses? Yes, Chair of the Sportsman Caucus.
No. I apologize. Maybe I've stood up. I
just
have an announcement, sir.
Please, Senator, may proceed, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise today to inform you that unfortunately I have some bad news for Western Maryland, Allegheny County in particular. I don't like to bring this news, but we have been informed that Hunter Douglas, one of our largest employers, has announced its closure and decommissioning of the plant. You know, as a senator that represents Appalachia, I must remind the body that the policies we pass here have consequences. Now, while it may be good for others, it also may issue a termination of a job for people in my region. Now, this is the second gut blow to my community. 18 months ago, the Verso paper mill announced its closure, and I want to thank this body, thank the Department of Commerce and Labor for an all-hands-on-deck approach. We are blessed to have Allegheny Works, which is a workforce development program. But I can't continue to retrain my workforce over and over and over. You know, Governor Moore's, I wouldn't call it a line because I truly believe he believes this, leave no one behind, has more meaning to me today than it did just 24 hours ago. You know, we talk about struggling families. It is a statewide problem, but struggling families is also an Allegheny County problem. And trying to help struggling families through the policies that we pass in the General Assembly should not hurt other struggling families from a different region. So I just ask colleagues, as we finish this session, please remember that policies have consequences, choices have consequences, and that if Maryland is going to remain business friendly, trust me, my neighbors, my colleagues back home, your decisions depends on our livelihood. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Senator. We're sorry to hear about that situation, and hopefully can provide the resources. I'm sure that hopefully the Department of Labor is listening, can help provide some support where feasible, and appreciate the Senator's remarks. All right, any further business before the body? If not, let's do a quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes, members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Thursday, March 9th at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Without objection, so ordered. Have a phenomenal day.